Welcome to the Azeroth Times, the podcast where I tell you what I find in game and what's going on. Hello! On this episode of the Azeroth Times, I'm going to talk about the different areas in Shadowlands and the Covenants, and maybe even more. But I'm going to read most of this, and some of this I will be reading for the first time. So I might even be shocked or disappointed, and you'll hear about it. Alright, now, the Shadowlands will consist of 6 new zones for leveling and in-game content. So, while Legion and Battle for Azeroth introduce players to previously unexplored regions of Azeroth itself, Shadowland instead takes place in an entirely different plane of existence. And I'm kind of thinking about it like Outlands. You went through a portal to an Outlands, but that's how I kind of think about it. Now, in Warcraft lore, the Shadowlands make up the realm of death on the edge of reality, much like the Emerald Dream. So, when the life of being in the Warcraft universe comes to an end, their soul crosses through the veil between life and death, escorted by Valkyr into the presence of the Arbiter. Now, the Arbiter is a judge of souls, and can see what those souls have done, accomplished, or even failed through their lives. Now, she sees all good deeds, good or bad, all their sins, all flaws and virtues, and then she judges and a soul accordingly, rallied them to one of the main realms in the Shadowlands where they spend their afterlife. Now, each soul brings with them a vital source known as anima, the product of all a person has done in their life. Great souls have more anima, poor souls even less. Now, anima is the lifeblood of the Shadowlands. It's the force that makes the trees grow, the rivers flow, and it is the power drawn upon anyone who conducts the magic of death. Now, when adventurers begin the campaign, they will learn that the machinery of death itself is broken. The souls of all who have died in recent years are pouring directly into the maw, rather than going before the Arbiter, and from there to one of the other main realms in the Shadowlands. Overflowing with the dead and the anima their souls bring with them, the maw is growing, swelling, and churning into a tremendous maelstrom that starves the other areas of the Shadowlands of that precious resource, causing them to wither. Now, I want to talk about a quick overview of the Shadowlands realms, where players will level their characters and experience the expansion story campaign. So, the first one we'll talk about is Bastion. Now, the realm of Bastion is ruled by the Carian Covenant, the forebears of the Valkyr and Spirit Healers. So, the souls that are sent to Bastion by the Arbiter are souls who have some natural calling to service in their life. So, upon arrival in Bastion, these souls aren't quite ready to ascend to their role as a Kyrian, and work towards this goal by attempting to shed their past burdens through meditation, reflection, and understanding of oneself. So, when this is done, these souls are ready to ascend to an eternity of service as a Valkyr, a Spirit Healer, or one of several other paths. So, an example of a well-known soul that ended up in Bastion is the Paladin Uther the Lightbringer, and the players will actually encounter him during their journey. Now, even though they're part of the realm of the dead, Bastion is a glowing, resplendent zone full of floating architecture and a golden blue accents. So it pretty much looks like a place one might expect a paladin or priest to end up once they've shuffled off their mortal coil, with clear azure skies overhead and a sense of peaceful calm permeating the land. Alright, so Maldraxxus is the next one that I'm going to talk about, and it is ruled by the Necrolord Covenant. Maldraxxus is the heart of the Shadowlands military might. Now, these souls here defend the Shadowlands from external forces waging war on the enemies of death. So these are the forces that were called upon by the Lich King to create the Scourge. So while at first glance one might assume Maldraxxus is a place where evil souls reign, it necessarily isn't the case. So some may use the powers of Maldraxxus for dark deeds. At its core, this is a place of relentless spirits. Those who spent their lives in an unyielding search for power and strength, both inward and outward. And so another example of a well-known soul that ended up here is the warlord Draka, mother of Thrall. Not an evil soul by any means. Draka was actually a mother who would never bow or kneel to anyone else's power. So in appearance, Maldraxxus is reminiscent of the Eastern Plainlands, familiar to WoW players. But it's amplified 1,000-fold. It's full of mist and greenish miasma. The landscape is dotted with rotting fungus and bleak, decaying trees. And players will also see architecture similar to the Scourge ziggurats that dot the Plainlands on Azeroth. Then we'll move on to Ardenweald, the Emerald's Dream Dark Mirror. Ardenweald is ruled by the Night Fae Covenant. As the Emerald Dream represents the burgeoning greenness and life of spring and summer, so Ardenweald represents autumn and winter. It is a place of rest, death, and rebirth, as the journey to death isn't necessarily a permanent one. So strong spirits of nature are called into Ardenweald upon their death. An example of a well-known soul that ended up in Ardenweald is the demigod Cenarius. So after falling before Grommash Hellscream, his soul traveled to Ardenweald so that he could rest and recover, then return to Azeroth and serve the wilds once more during the events of Cataclysm. Ardenweald is an enchanted mystical forest, Blizzard described as a fairy forest. With its massive ancient trees cast their canopies wide beneath, a shimmering violet night sky speckled with an infinite amount of silver stars. Despite this beauty, however, some parts of Ardenweald are withering due to their connection to the Drusk, who were introduced in Battle for Azeroth. Revendreth is ruled by the Covenant of the Vinethir, vampiric punisher of the unworthy, and spirits directed to Revendreth upon death have some sort of deep internal flaw, whether pride, greed, or any number of other things. These flaws present an obstacle that blocks and hinders a soul's ability to serve the Shadowlands anywhere else, and so to Revendreth they go to atone and do penance. Some may be redeemed, moving on to another of the Shadowlands realms, while others will not. So you'll recognize a soul that was here is none other than the Sun King himself, Kel'Thas Sunstrider. Now, one setback led to another, and now he resides among the denizens of Revendreth, where players will get to encounter the prideful Blood Elf once again. Now, this zone is a creepy, gothic zone full of mist and foreboding castles topped by soaring spires. The realm's denizens live within villages lying cold in their shadows, and terror and horror lurks around every corner. Now, Oribos, the Eternal City, is an ancient city of unknown construction that predates memory and the Titans. Now, this place is a mysterious machine that powers the Shadowlands and serves as the home of the Arbiter. So, it is also a gathering port for brokers and soul traders. Oribos is the center of politics within the Shadowlands and will also serve as a main player hub of the expansion, even though a certain Khadgar would have gladly sent all of Dalaran there. So, the Maw has one rule nothing has ever escaped, except players. Now, aside from other realms that I talked about earlier, there's one more zone that can't go without mentioning. A horrific prison for the most vile souls in existence, the Maw, is ruled by no covenant and is considered a place of mystery even to Shadowlands natives. The Maw is the domain of the jailer, known only through whispers and seen as the boogeyman of the Shadowlands. So the Maw has one simple rule: nothing has ever escaped. So you can journey through the Maw as one way, or at least it was until the player character arrived. Adventurers will begin the story campaign of Shadowlands by entering the realm of death through the Maw, with assistance from powerful NPCs such as Bolvar Dragon. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to Covenants. Now, the Covenants represent the four powers of the Shadowlands, which is the Angelic Kyrians, the Liches, Warlords, and Spies of the Necrolord, the Night Fae, Shepherds of the Natural Cycle, and the Vampiric Light-Fearing Venator. As the number one feature of the expansion, each Covenant will seek the aid of players, for they are powerful heroes who are still tethered to the land of the living despite being in the realm of the dead. So they need you. So players must make a choice of which Covenant they will join at max level. And each offers its own array of powers and rewards for doing so. So each Covenant does something that you'll want, probably. So all four Covenants also have their own unique, full in-game narrative campaign that gamers can play through. Covenants also supply those who join them with unique cosmetic rewards, including a new type of back cosmetic called Covenant Cloaks. Now, these cloaks are a set of cloak replacements and back attachments such as wings, halos, and other options that fit each Covenant's theme. So, each Covenant will also have armor mounts with unique appearances for players to collect and show off as they explore the Shadowlands. And also, those who disliked the artifact system in the past two expansions will be pleased to note that there will be no artifact power to grind in the Covenant system. Thank goodness. The BlizzCon team stated that they have heard player feedback and want fans to have a world with goals they could work toward without necessitating a grind. Now, let's see. Covenants each grant a unique base ability as well as special class ability. Each Covenant offers players who join them two special Covenant abilities. One generic ability given to all who belong to a specific Covenant, and a second ability based on player class. So if you belong to a Covenant, everybody will get this one generic ability with that Covenant, and then whatever class you are, you'll get a secondary ability based on your class of that Covenant. So each Covenant, the generic ability granted is one that enhances player movement. The Night Fae have the power to shapeshift into a spirit fox, which increases their movement speed for 10 seconds, and additionally applies a buff that causes enemies to ignore their presence. The Kyrian's ability is called Unburdened, in which, like the spirit fox ability from the Night Fae, Unburdened increases a player's movement speed for a short time. Necrolords have an interesting ability called Transcend the Flesh, which allows them to pull their souls out of their bodies, then walk around in their spirit world while leaving their body behind. And the Venator can create a door of shadows to walk through and exit a short distance away, much like Reaper's teleport in Overwatch. And class abilities are new, powerful combat abilities granted by Covenants according to player class. The BlizzCon team chose to use mages as an example class to give an idea of what type of power each Covenant will grant, such as Radiant Spark, a spell that causes arcane damage to a DOT effect, while causing the next 4 player attacks against the affected target to deal 25% to 100% more damage. Necrolords give mages an ability which causes spells to splash rot and ichor and deal area damage, while the Night Fae grant a power that gives players a haste buff and a damage aura. Finally, the Venator grant mages a spell called Mirrors of Torment, which summons 3 mirrors to rotate around a target, causing them to take damage and be rooted to the ground whenever they attempt an action. And then also, players can bind their souls to powerful denizens of the Shadowlands for more buffs. So in the Shadowlands, any individuals can choose to bind their souls together, engaging in a symbiotic relationship where each gains power from the other. When players join a Covenant, they can then form a connection together with one of that Covenant's powerful NPCs, gaining yet another ability or buff. An example that was given at BlizzCon was a soulbind buff that increases one's parry rating. Adventurers can unlock new tiers of power over time, customizing their soulbind with a new type of item called conduits. Conduits essentially provide players with talent trees for their soulbinds, allowing them to customize these buffs to fit their personal style. Gamers can switch soulbinds whenever a new strategy is called for, and each NPC capable of soulbinding has a history waiting to be heard. Now, players will help rebuild their Covenant's sanctum, which is cool. Throughout each Covenant's unique campaign, adventurers will help upgrade their specific Covenant's sanctum, restoring them to glory, much like Shadowlands and class halls in Legion. Sanctums will serve as Covenant quest hubs and will also contain special NPCs, vendors, and other Covenant-specific things. Many players enjoy the personal connection to the storyline they felt when their actions affected the appearance of Shadowlands and Legion, and Covenant Sanctums seem to an excellent way to let fans feel this connection again in Shadowlands. Also, Bolvar is not dead, and Sylvanas is in league with the Jailer. The reveal cinematic for WoW, Shadowlands left the fate of hero Bolvar Fordragon ambiguous, but the Blizzard team revealed that he did indeed survive the Banshee Queen's assault on Icecrown. Now, Bolvar plays an essential part in the Shadowlands story, assisting the player in the descent into the realm of death. Now, the reason for the player's journey to Shadowlands is, of course, the destruction of the Lich King's helmet by Sylvanas Windrunner, an action which tore asunder the veil separating the realms of the living and dead. Long-term Warcraft fans may wonder just how Sylvanas has managed to grow so powerful in such a short time span. Once, she was a powerful and mighty Dark Ranger who still had to flee before the Lich King lest she lose her undead life. Now, she is an unquantifiable entity, capable of smiting Sourfang with ease and standing off against Bolvar while barely breaking into a cold undead sweat. The World of Warcraft team explained at BlizzCon that Sylvanas has no master, for she is above that. Beyond that, she is, however, in league with the Jailer at the center of the Maw, his partner and equal. This allegiance to one of the great lords of death is what has enhanced her power to its current level, and her ultimate fate is still to come. And also, if you like playing alts, Shadowlands is more alt-friendly than Legion or Battle for Azeroth. One of the chief complaints WoW fans have voiced throughout the past few expansions is how difficult it is in game current state to create and enjoy playing many alt characters. Artifact power grinds, reputation grinds, prerequisite quests required to unlock in-game content, and more obstacles stand in the way of players' ability to enjoy more than one character at max level, without necessitating an inordinate amount of time dedicated to the game. But in Shadowlands, once a player has one character who has completed the story campaign, their alternate characters will be able to access what was described as a new game experience, where one can choose their Covenant right away when beginning Shadowlands content, gaining their Covenant powers immediately to aid them in leveling. In addition, alternate characters won't have to follow the campaign's linear format and can instead choose what zone they would like to level in. World Quest will also be available to alt characters who will earn in-game progression rewards as they level, putting them ahead of the game. So return to the Maw at max level, explore Torghast to earn legendaries. So legendaries are in the game. While players begin their adventure in Shadowlands by entering the realm of the dead through the Maw, they will not return to that place until reaching maximum level. When stepping foot back into the Maw, adventurers will find an entirely different type of zone than what has appeared in WoW before. A fearsome place of free-form outdoor gameplay with no ends, nowhere to bind a hearthstone, and not a single NPC willing to sell them water or pink frosted cupcakes. So the mall features several new and unique zone mechanics. Nowhere is safe. The creatures, the land itself wants to murder adventurers who are known as mall walkers, individuals who can transcend the grip of death. Anything gamers do in the mall will incur the ire of the jailer, who will punish them accordingly, changing the way the denizens of the mall react to player presence. For example, the aggro radius of Shadowhounds might increase, and then as one continues to draw the jailer's attention, he might send kill squads directly against them. The level of danger increases as players traverse the zone, giving it a dangerous, unpredictable, and inhospitable feel. Now, at the center of the mall is Torghast, the strange tower that appeared to float over Icecrown Citadel at the end of the Shadowlands cinematic trailer. The center and anchor of the mall, Torghast, is the home of the jailer and his most dangerous forces, and does not obey the normal contours and rules of reality. Torghast is a scalable instance dungeon meant for 1 to 5 players. Both player characters and their enemies alike grow in power as they ascend the tower. Though players will gain temporary powerful abilities to help them in their climb, the first few floors of any run through Torghast may seem like standard dungeons, but higher up there will be traps, puzzles, and locked doors to impede player progress. The layout of Torghast constantly changes, inspired by the random dungeon layout of roguelike games, and also seen in the randomly generated dungeons of Diablo. Torghast runs are not timed, and players can take their time to hunt for anima, that same magical soul stuff that infuses the Shadowlands with power. Collecting anima will give adventurers buffs that will last throughout each Torghast run, such as increased health or mana, and even abilities that may deal damage and synergize with another ability earned earlier in the run. Players brave enough to tackle Torghast will find that they can collect runes throughout the dungeon, items which may then combine together to forge their own legendary items. With Torghast's legendary system, gamers can choose what slot their legendary goes in, as well as what kind of power and even secondary stat distribution they would like, allowing fans to forge their own fantasy. Shadowlands introduces a modern new player experience, so new players are not overwhelmed. With all the expansions and additions to the story released over the years, new players jumping into World of Warcraft for the first time are met with a confusing array of conflicting timelines and storylines. Among other brain twisters, new players can't find 4 different war chiefs of the Horde present at the same time in Orgrimmar, with no real idea of which one is the actual current leader. So, to help alleviate this, it will introduce a brand new starting zone for all classes known as Exile's Reach. New players will enter a story in which their faction has learned of an uncharted island and sent an expedition to explore it, but that expedition never returned or reported back. So player characters will join a rescue team and travel to Exile's Reach, where they will experience a storyline involving an ogre necromancer who seeks to create an army of zombies, including a zombie dragon. Exile's Reach ends in a 2-boss mini-dungeon that scales to match whatever party a player might have and can be completed solo or with friends as one desires. Once a new player has completed Exile's Reach, they will be thrust into the storyline at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth, where they will start their leveling experience at level 10. This system is intended to introduce new players to the game while catching them up on the storyline and alleviating confusion. Shadowlands also introduces a new streamlined leveling flow for existing players. So the BlizzCon team identified the major issue with leveling as it currently works in World of Warcraft, specifically citing that leveling takes too long and not every level is rewarding. Shadowlands attempts to remedy this by changing the leveling experience for existing players as well as new ones. When Shadowlands goes live, All existing level 120 characters will find themselves reduced to level 50, fitting in with the new level range of 1 through 60. Characters under level 120 will be scaled down to a matching equivalent. Level pacing has shifted, and players will find that it takes 60 to 70% less time to level from 1 to 50. A breath of fresh air for alcoholics everywhere. Another example of Blizzard offering fans more choice, existing players can choose their own leveling experience in Shadowlands. Upon completion of character creation, adventurers can select which starting zone they would like to play in, whether that be the new area of Exile's Reach or one of the existing starting zones that have long been available. So after reaching level 10, long-term players will be visited by Chromie, who prompts them to select an expansion containing a storyline they wish to play through. One can level through any expansion storyline they wish, as all zones now will scale to current character level. This allows gamers to enjoy the full story of any given expansion rather than leveling out of it too fast to explore more than one zone. The creation of this new leveling system was prompted by the lesson Blizzard learned back in Cataclysm, which is that players do not like it when massive changes are made to the existing game world and the iconic places they love. The streamlined leveling experience planned for Shadowlands allows Blizzard to keep the story current without having to destroy the entire world and rebuild it. I liked it. Some people didn't, I know. But alright, class identity returns along with class defining mechanics and abilities. So, for a long time now, characters in WoW seem more defined by their specific class specialization rather than their base class itself. BlizzCon team explained this by using the example of a priest in battle for Azeroth. A player might create a level 1 priest, which is forced into discipline spec by default, and then when they make the switch to shadow specialization at level 10, they lose half their abilities and feel almost like a different class entirely, rather than maintaining the base identity of a priest. So what they did to fix this and give each class some of its identity back, they will see the return of class defining mechanics and abilities. So once again, all paladins will have auras, so that when a player looks at their active buffs, they will know a paladin is nearby. All shamans will have a set of base totems. Rogues will once again poison their weapons. All warlocks will have access to base set of curses to inflict upon their enemies. And once more, all priests can now access both the shadow and the light, and all new characters will begin their journey unspecialized until reaching level 10. And so, in case this wasn't just enough, each class will also see the return of their most iconic abilities. So, examples of returning skills: Frost Shock, Consecration, Death Coil, and Raised Dead. In addition, some iconic abilities that were made talents in recent expansion will once again be baseline for their specialization or class, such as Demonic Circle, Summon Gargoyle, Hunter's Mark, Hammer of Wrath, Cyclone, Shattering Throw, Kill Shot, Challenging Shout, and Anti-Magic Zone. Now, there's 8 dungeons and 1 raid will be available at launch. The BlizzCon team revealed that Shadowlands will feature 8 dungeons, 4 available while players are leveling up, and 4 which are intended for the endgame. Leveling players can delve into the Necrotic Wake, Plaguefall, Turn of Scythe, and the Halls of Atonement. And then at max level, wait the Spires of Ascension, the Theater of Pain, the Sanguine Depths, and the Other Side. Castle Nathria is a 10-boss raid available at launch, located in Revendreth. Nathria is planned as a winged raid where players will choose between 2 initial wings containing 3 bosses each. Once both of these wings have been cleared, players can ascend to the upper levels of the castle to face the final 4 bosses. Kind of reminds me of Scarlet Monastery, which is kind of cool. Details regarding what encounters players may face in these dungeons and within Castle Nathria were scarce. But the WoW team did reveal that one of these dungeons will contain a face familiar to players from Battle of Azeroth, Bosamni, the deal-making Loa of the Dead. Shadowlands introduces more character customization options. And now, everyone can be a Death Knight. You can be a Death Knight. You can be a Death Knight. You can be a Death Knight. All races can be Death Knights now. Alright, so my final impressions, it sounds like they're making it into a new game without making it into a new game, but bringing back some of the old stuff. So, stuff that I know I liked, there's a lot of stuff that some of the other players like, and that people have been complaining about, and so they listen. So, alright, can't wait for next week's episode. Y'all have fun. This show is brought to you by Heartland Production Entertainment. If you'd like to help to make the show better, go to patreon.com/heartlandpae.